as well. We're going to go live once again, just like we did earlier. So we're going to hit several little things. If you get something on here that doesn't make sense, or you can't remember how we got there, just stop me. All right. So we'll run through some of these. The very first thing I'd like to do is at the top right here, you have home and results and details, reports. It shows the 2 reports because we did 2 reports with the mobile earlier. So those are still there, right? Everybody can see that. And then the little sprocket on the side, once again, that's where we started this morning, making sure that you have all this information out and filled out in here. And I don't have like brokerage information stuff because, again, this is not, if I put that in, it's going to brand it. It's going to pull from MLS and all that. So I don't have it connected. In fact, I don't have it connected to my MLS at all. If you have multiple MLSs, like John's talking about, you can actually link to each one of those in here on this site. Whichever MLS you want to go to, the broker I work with has 4 different MLSs. So she actually logs into one, and then she can see which one she has set up here, and she can switch it back and forth from right there. The other is making sure that you have your mobile devices connected, just like we started out this morning. And then I would highly encourage you to link zip forms. Those of you, there were some of you this morning that are not using zip form. Some of you use like dot loop or something. Yes. Oh, is everybody using zip form?
I have a question about that.
Sure.
That's the other thing, is that what if you're licensed in 2 different states? And I mean, it's been so combobulated the entire, I don't know, 16 years or whatever, but would this affect my RPR if?
So when you go there to log into your MLS, you decide which one you want as your primary, right? And then you can change it and go back and forth between them. The only difference there is, just like on my real account, just like on the real account, I cannot see sold information in San Antonio because I'm not a member of that board. I just use that as an example, right? I can see the properties that are for sale. I can see the ones that have sold, but I don't see the sold price. Some of the boards allow that information to be available. Some don't, because every time I've talked to people, they say, well, Texas is a non-disclosure state, but this is only for realtors. So it's not licensees even, you have to be a realtor to have access to it. So it's not like we're going to be giving away information. The other part of this, and when we're looking, this is what I'm talking about. So you can have any state, because this is in all the states. So you can have any state, and you can actually put in your MLS information, and it'll pull from the different MLSs depending on the state that you're with. So it'll pull from whatever MLS you have.
Just one slide.
The other part down here on the bottom is you can create an access for an assistant in here. If you have an assistant, you can add them in here. And some of our agents are doing that because we use RPR for just about everything. We do all of our CMAs and everything is done in RPR. So you have that down here where you can create that. And that's not usually an issue because they work for you, right? All right, so I'm going to go back to the top here. When we're going through this, at the very top, there's also commercial here. And if you're doing commercial, if you're involved in commercial, you can click over to that and there's all your commercial information. It has some of the same things that we have on the residential side. And I show you that only because if you're into commercial or you know an agent that is, there's a ton of information in there. Years ago when I started working on this and getting certified in it, et cetera, I took classes to learn more about the commercial, but I've never taught it. And because that's not my specialty, I have no desire to do that. So I've just let that fall. But the commercial guys we work with, they use that quite a bit. It has traffic count. Anything that's public information is in there on the commercial side even. So.
And Mac, it doesn't cost $5,500 a year like the commercial software, and it's got more stuff in it.
Absolutely. Thank you, John. You're absolutely correct. Yeah. And NAR is doing as much as they can to add things to this, which is another part and the reason why I don't use the slides. This changes all the time. Anything new they have, they'll put it up here on the top for you. And we'll talk about some of those things as well. All right. Across the search window here, if you will, you have all properties for sale, lease, neighborhoods, market activity. Before we get there, and that's where we're going to start at, but before we get there, you have saved over here. So things that we did this morning are saved right here. And the searches that we did this morning, they're saved down here. Earlier, there was a comment made about I asked Connie about a report, and this works the same type of way, right? You can save that. You can do other things with it. So right here are all the properties I've done searches with, right? I can go in here and click on edit, and it'll allow me to move those properties around so that I can actually, so let's say I want to take this number 25, for example, and move it up here to the top. So it becomes one I look at all the time and keeps it fresh. Or I can just click on delete and get it out of there.
And you're saying that it'll save it for 30 days unless you request it to save it longer.
You can move it around. Anytime you open it, it restarts that. So if I have a property that I'm working with, when I click on it, it'll allow me to restart that clock, if you will, to save it in there for a longer period of time. But that edit where you can move them around, I found that to be real beneficial, especially working with investors on their properties, because I try to keep them top of mind and how we can work with it. So we have that there. Down on the bottom, you have recent properties that you've clicked on. And again, that can be on your phone or on your computer, right? So again, you'll see here where the phone is from what we did this morning. There's the one that I saved as mobile CE, right, this morning. You have your recent searches and recent reports. So any of the reports that you've done, those will be here. And I emphasize that only because again, you may have to go back and pull some of that information. They're going to be here for a while, but they're not going to be here for a long period of time. If I wanted to go from reports, almost everything in here, you have 2 or 3 different ways of doing it. I can click on reports up here at the top, and it'll take me over to the reports page, or I can click on it down here and just jump over to the reports page. Works really well. On these tabs across here, it changes what you're looking for. So any situation you throw out falls into this. Buyers asking about which schools are the best. I can click on schools, plug in the zip code. I can do it by school district if I wanted to, right? And they're concerned about high school, so I don't need these others. I can plug that in. I can pull up that report for them based on schools. And then once I pull that report, I can send that to them, which works really well. If I go back over here to neighborhoods, the same thing. In our company training next Tuesday, I'm going to be using this. And one of the things that and the reason I share this with you is we're at that time of the year where we need to look at what has sold where. So twice a year, I was taught this back in 97, I think it was 97, 90, 98, something like that. The twice a year, what I used to do is take a look at MLS and see which subdivisions have had the most turnover for the year and which ones have had none. Out of the ones that have had the most turnover, is there one agent or multiple agents? And there's a difference there. So if I have a subdivision that's had 10 properties sold and it's one agent, I'm going to stalk that agent. Or I'm going to work with that agent to try to find out what they're doing to make that work, right? If there's multiple agents in that subdivision, then I want to follow that subdivision. And I know there's holes in there if there's multiple agents in there. Does that make sense? And the neighborhood will help you do some of that. On the for sale, this is very much like MLS. Over here on the right, when I click on advanced, it opens up everything just like an MLS. I can choose what I want. The square footage, the lot size, is it just single family or multiple? What are we looking for? Do you want a property with photos, no photos, all that? It's almost like an MLS. And in fact, earlier there was a question. I think Connie asked that question about horses, right? So right here where it says Canyon Lake, everybody see that? It says Canyon Lake. I did this while we we're on that little break.
Oh, yeah.
So I did a search where I plugged in the keyword horse for Canyon Lake area. And it looks like there's two properties, but they're the same. And the reason for that is, and this is a good example of why you use RPR. Now watch, it won't load for me. It's the same agent, but two different MLSs. And that's the same thing we have here in the Valley. Come on. There it is. So Elk Ridge, and this is exactly what I was talking about earlier. So if we take a look at these two, for example, get these to open up. Down here on the side, this is who it's listed by, right? And if I go back, that was the top one. If I go back and I click on the second one, it's the same agent, right? And it tells you it's multiple records on this property. And that's because they have it listed in two MLSs. Everybody see that? And that happens from time to time. We have the same thing. We have three MLSs down here, 100 miles apart, which is kind of silly. But here's what I was getting at right here, horse.
You're ready? You still there?
So by doing that keyword search, it allowed us to pull that up.
So I must not have both of my MLSs set up because only one Elk Ridge came up for me.
It doesn't matter what you have. I can pull property from anywhere in the United States.
Right.
And you don't need to have, it's not your specific MLS, because this gives you access to properties all over the United States. And I think John had mentioned earlier about doing a search for somebody outside of his area that was trying to buy a property. And I've done that. I've done it, the New York one. I've done Galveston. My sister was buying a house up by Galveston.
Right. But when you said on the initial setup that you have to link your MLS to.
That's so that you have specific information for the area you're working, right? And you can pull up property anywhere in the United States.
Right.
I have a question.
Sure.
So if my home office is Four Rivers, but I subscribe to ABOR and SABOR, and all three of those overlap significantly. Is there a way that if I'm searching, if I'm in an area, if I'm in San Marcos, that it will search all three of those MLSs at the same time?
Okay. So that's a really good question, Jennifer. That's why that's what I was getting at a while ago. This does not run by the MLS. It does not run by the MLS. It'll search everything. And
so anything that's showing up, it could be SABOR, ABOR, or Four Rivers.
Right.
So it's not just going to be.
So for example, when you say Four Rivers, what's one of the towns there? San Marcos?
Mm-hmm.
New Braunfels.
Okay. Let's do this one real quick. All right, so I'm able to see, and I don't belong to that MLS, but I'm able to see what they have. Where it will limit what I can see is the sold properties. That's what it'll do, is it'll limit what I can see as far as the sold properties. And over here on the right-hand side where it has active and pending, and this layout is going to depend on what they have set up for that area also. So any area in the United States you want to pull up, you can pull that up. And it doesn't have to even be a listing. It can be any property. I certainly don't do business in Kansas. but that's where I grew up at, right? And
Mac,
that,
does it help not to put road or court and just put the street so that everything will come up?
sure, yeah, and that'll help with the search. So you need to decide. I had that on for sale. That's the reason that one didn't go through like that. The so right here in the bar, it tells you can have address, city, zip code, county, the municipal district, township, MLS number, right? And you can put multiple MLS IDs in here. If I have those, because sometimes buyers I know in our area, they'll say, well, I've seen it on realtor.com. Here's the MLS number. So I can just plug that number in, right? That works too. So it works search wise, it works just like MLS, but it's not an MLS where it's only based on my area type thing. And that's, we use it in our area because we have the multiple MLSs. I live in Harlingen, but I work in Mission, for example, which is two different MLSs. I belong to the McAllen MLS, but if I list a property in Harlingen, they're not going to see it because I'm not a member of their MLS unless they go to RPR. And that's why we teach new agents here. If you're working for a buyer, go to RPR and do the search. If you do the search only in MLS, you're going to miss some of the things that are on the market because of us being such a small area, we crisscross all over, just like some of you are talking about. Just like you were talking about, Jennifer.
In your opinion, would it be safe to say then it's not necessary for me to be part of all three boards because RPR is there?
That's that. I'm going to leave that up to you.
Okay.
I will, and the reason I say that, the reason I'm hesitant is we just had that. We're doing our strategic planning for the next 5 years, and we just had that conversation. We are trying to merge or do something, take over, do something, because there's no reason to have 3 different MLSs.
Mhm.
There's not. But and I've had to belong to all of them at one point. I don't now because of that reason.
Mhm.
You know, if I put a sign in the yard, somebody's going to call. That's what NAR says 94% of the people call based on the sign, right? Does an agent need to be able to find it? Sure they do. So again, that comes back to the training side. We tell them if you get a phone call and you can't find it in your MLS, go to RPR or just start at RPR.
Yeah, but the question, you can't find the sold prices though if you're not in that MLS.
And that is
So
true.
that could affect your.
And that's absolutely true in some MLSs. Absolutely true. That could have an impact on your job as the listing agent. So one of the things I also wanted to show you this is, let's say you just got a new listing. So we are in. I'm going to do all properties. I'm going to do all properties for you real quick. And this is just a little technique. Some of you may be familiar with this. Some of you may not. I pulled from the property that I had up just a minute ago. I pulled the tax ID number, right? So if I plug that in here, that property is going to come back up, or should. Yeah, it didn't. Let me go back over here. So I did with it. Yeah, let's pull this one. Probably plugged in the wrong city. So you take the tax ID number, the partial number, right? And you can come back in here and you can plug that in here under the advanced. It's not doing it. That's one of the bad things about live classes, but let's back this up just a second. We're gonna do it one more time. Oh, you know why? Let's see. It's clear. Let's clear these filters out. There's something in here causing it not to come up. It's something that but what'll happen with it is you'll actually pull up. Oh, I have a horse in there. Duh, duh. That's it. There you go. So now we'll do it one more time. All right, so if I do a search, it's going to pull that property up, right? And what I want to do is, what I was trying to show you is, if I take off the last 4 numbers and do that search, it'll allow me to pull up the subdivision. There you go. So if I just got a listing, I can pull up the homes around it just by doing that, right? And you take off the last 4 to 6 numbers off the tax ID number, and now I have that. Why is that important? Why does that even matter? Well, in prospecting, we want to reach out to the people around us, right? If I just got a listing, if I just sold the listing, if I'm having an open house, I want to reach out to those individuals. So this only has 10 properties in it, right? So I could go back and I could take off a couple more and pull up more properties. But just to show you what I wanted to show you, the reason for that is up here at the top, we have 2 options. We can print this page, which I have not found a real need for, or I can do mailing labels. How many of you do the mailing labels? John, Jennifer? Awesome. If you do the mailing labels on it, it gives you some options on how you want to do them. And you're only allowed to do 2,000 a month, right? You can owner's name, owner or current resident, which I would never use, or current resident. I would use the owner's name or a custom. And I'll tell you why here in a second. The other thing is occupancy. You want owner occupied or absentee owner. The fact that you can split that out to me is incredible. You know your areas. So let's take the first one with the name. So if I was doing, as we do we have an area, you guys probably have the same thing area. In your area, we have almost like a subdivision where it's primarily 90% of it's rental property, right? Some of it's duplexes, some of it's single family, but the majority of them are rental properties. I would use future homeowner and send them something. That works. And then down here where we, absentee owner, if I want to go to the absentee owner, then I might go to the owner's name, but absentee. So they own a house in Harlingen, but they live in Michigan, which we have. That's Winter Texans, right? So I'm going to pull those names. That's going to be a filter. I'm only going to get labels for those individuals. So it's like another search tool, if you will. Does that make sense? And we use that a lot. Because it helps us get areas that we need. And you can exclude or include properties with incorrect addresses or incomplete addresses.
Can you show me again where you put that parcel number in?
Sure. Yes, ma'am. And in fact, notice on that screen we had 10. So we're going to do it again here. You always have to have the city or zip code or whatever in here at the top. You click on the right-hand side for the advanced, and it goes right here. Now, when I plug this in, all I did was I copied and pasted the tax ID number, right?
When you looked it up individually.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
And then
sometimes,
you take off how many? 4?
Well, 4 to 6. So the last time I took off 4, this time I'm going to take off 6 and do the same search. And we should come up with more properties. Last time we had 10. There's 35.
Okay.
In the same general area.
I
Okay.
got you.
Right. Any other questions or comments about that? All right, so that's one of the ways. On the left-hand side of this, is like I was mentioned earlier, it's almost like MLS in that you can do searches that way. And notice we have off market and for sale in here, right? So we have a combination because of the way we did our search. Yes, sir.
Question, is this how you said that you target neighborhoods to find out what's moving or what's that are moving it?
Yes. Yeah, that's one of the ways that you can do that. The other one we use a lot of is the maps. Right? Or we'll use this. And this will give us the subdivision, some of the subdivision information within that area, as far as what's happening within the, not specific subdivisions, but what's happening within that market with that area. So MLS will show us the actual specific subdivisions, or if we know the subdivisions, we can go in and plug that in at the top as well. This is the stats that you'd want to send out, pull and send out for market updates, right? You could do that. And it has a bunch of information. We used to have to do this by hand, right? In 2001, I was in Austin. I was taught to do market updates as a way of prospecting. Send out a postcard every month that says average sales price, average list price, average sales price, average price per square foot, average year built, average bedroom, bath. I would send that out every month, a postcard, market update. And I would have to go through MLS and pull that up for that subdivision. Here, I can do all that right in the search bar. So where it has the neighborhood, I can actually plug in the subdivision. So if you know a subdivision that you want to check on, or you have a subdivision you're working and you're trying to see how it's going, you can pull it up that way as well. All right. Any other questions right there? All right. So when we do our search, just like we were talking about this morning, there's a ton of information in there that that we have. I'm going to go back to that one that we just did. So on the right-hand side, we have the map with all those properties. And if I click on the map, that's going to open up. Now we have that because of the search we did, it's giving us that specific area, right? And you can zoom into it so that you can see it better if you want. That's all incorporated around here because we use the tax ID number, correct? So we have that. And by the way, this little snowflake looking thing here, maybe that's not the right word, but if I click on that, it'll take me back to where the map was when I originally opened it up, right? So that's a really good tool because I used to be one of those, I would enlarge it so I could see it better, and then I'd sit here and click on the minus to get it back to where it needed to be, which we don't need. I'm going to go back over here. We're going to do, let's see. Is there a specific zip code for, John, you mentioned New Braunfels earlier. Is there a specific zip code for that area?
78130.
Awesome. So we're on the map because we haven't done anything with it, right? We have the basics for that zip code, for that specific zip code. And when we say the basics, the colors, like we were talking about earlier, just like on the phone, those items are right here, right? So it shows you what the properties are. It's the same thing that we use on the phone. In that zip code, there's 38 sorry, 33,000 properties listed, public records. What I want to do is I want to work a part of this neighborhood over here. So I'm going to enlarge this. So that I can see that area. Now, again, this is just like everything else we have. We have all these tools, but a lot of us don't use them. But here I have the draw a shape, box, polygon, whatever, right? I'm going to use the polygon and say I want just that area. This window opens up, search that area. That's 576 acres we're covering right there, right? Search that area, yes. So now see how that populated out? So now we have everything. And this is one, Daryl, when you were asking about the subdivision. So now we have properties of all sorts in here, right? And this is another one where I'll click over here, go to the mailing labels, and now I'm going to mail everybody that's in that subdivision or that area that I'm trying to work right there. And if you need to reset it, you have that at the upper right where you can do that as well and take it back to where it was originally at. The using the pin, you guys use the pin at all for the maps? Some? Okay. So if I want distance, I click on it and you decide, let's say that's where the house is, for example. Like I was talking about the doctors and nurses at the hospital. Ideal distance, 5 miles. And it'll give you a chance to look at those properties if that's what you want, right? You can apply that, or you can adjust the miles, whatever you want to go with it. Reset this. And you also have the drive time, which is the same way. You set the pin in. What's cool is you decide. We were working with a Marine recruiter years ago, and having been one myself, they were wanting to live in Harlingen, but his office was going to be in Brownsville. And I don't know if any of you know anything about military recruiters, but their hours are insane, right? And that's one of the things I was sharing with him is you're going to have to be at the office sometimes 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. You may not get home till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night. Where do you really want to be? So this allows us to choose, if I'm going early in the morning, what's the traffic like? And it'll show that, right? Or you can actually go in and make adjustments. Okay, well, morning doesn't seem to be a problem. What about early afternoon? What's it going to look like? You know, that kind of thing. So you can use it that way as well. Let me back out of this a little bit. No. Okay. So here on geographies, you have the schools down at the bottom, and you have other things that are in here as well. And it allows you to do those searches that way also. So if somebody was looking for a specific area and we need to work on that and they're concerned about schools and et cetera, I can click on that. And what happens is the maps go in here. When I click on the maps, it'll tell me what, or the block, it'll tell me which school is in that area. And you can do that by whichever schools you need, right? And the same thing with zip codes and other aspects of this. A lot of really good tools. How many of you have used the POIs? What is that? Points of interest. Yes, absolutely. So when I click on points of interest, let's say, now we're going to take this in just a little bit more, if you will. Let's say we want banks. So then it populates. There's all the banks around there. Not concerned with banks, but I have young kids. We need a daycare. Where are the daycares? All right, so there's the daycare. So now And you have all the others that are on here as well. But let's say right here's a daycare, so I can click on it. It tells me what it is. Now I can search listings around that. So that points of interest is another really good way of trying to do that based on what the consumer is telling you. Questions? You guys have been pretty quiet. All right, so let's say the buyer was interested in this. Oh, that took me to a different area. Let's go to this one, see if we can find out. So let's say a buyer was interested in this particular property, and we're going to go in and we're going to take a look at it. We want to do a market analysis on it. We're not going to go in deep detail with the market analysis, but I want to just take a look at it initially, just like we were doing on our phone earlier. We're going to scroll down. We'll see what's there. If the property's never been sold before, it has the AVM, right? That's the automated value model. And here I can click on details. That'll tell me what the computer's using to come up with that value, right? I will tell you, and this is like telling on myself, if you will. When I look at this one, it has 5 stars because I use this so much and I believe in it. If somebody says I'm thinking about selling my property and I pull it up and it has 5 stars, I'm going to automatically, without doing anything else, just off the cuff, your price range is between 334 and 409,000, which is a big gap. So let me do some more searching if those price range sounds good to you. If that price range sounds good, let me do some more work on it. And if they say, no, I want more than that, I may not do anything with it because I believe this system's pretty darn good. If I pull this up and it only has 1 star, we're gonna have to do all kinds of work, right? Because what it's saying is there's not enough there within the system for the computers to tell you what they think it's worth. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You were saying earlier about some people blocking the information that is that trickles into the public. How do they block it?
The MLS will have have it set up so that they can feed it out or not allow it. So when RPR gets an IDX feed, right? Computer term for the information, right? So if you have 100 wires running into RPR from your MLS, they may decide to take the one that has sold information out and only allow 99 of them to go. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And,
Bless you.
bless you.
Sorry.
And that is real. So if you're not a member of that MLS, you may not be able to see. You'll see that it's sold, but not be able to see the sold information on it. But there's other ways you can get that, which is kind of crazy. If you have the time. But anyway, like for example, a lot of times you can pull that up on Zillow or other places, and they may or may not have true sold information. Just depends on how they have that set up. On here, real quick, we look at some basic information about it. This actually says it's a multiplex, which is not what I wanted, but we'll just go ahead and work with it. Here's some of the things we have. The photos. This property again has been listed with 3 different boards, or 2 different boards, 3 different places. They have it as commercial because it's multifamily as well, which is a little different. Here's the property notes. I can actually include property notes on here if I wanted to. Well, let me get out of that. I could include property notes on here if I wanted to. I can put whatever I want to. Those are my notes. Right here where it says include in my reports. When I get ready to do a report on it, it's going to keep it or it won't. I can upload the photos like the one we had earlier. Seller's proceeds. What do you guys use for seller's proceeds? What do you guys use? If you're taking a listing and the seller says, I want to sell it at this price. How do you figure out what their net proceeds are?
I use the Alamo title app.
Awesome, Jan. I love that. Yes. And I say I love it because I don't use Alamos, but I use the title app.
Yeah.
And where we are at, I have to use two different ones. We use one title company for Cameron County, another title company for Hidalgo, because the fees are different in the two counties, as crazy as that is, right?
Which ones
And
do you use for GMAR?
for GMAR, I will use Valley Land Title most of the time, or Capital Title. Capital Title actually has a really good app on the phone where you can pull it up there. Right here where it has seller's proceeds, and the reason I asked that, this is not set up where it does it automatically. Those apps are, and that's the reason I like those. Seller proceeds like this have been around for years. We have them in here, we have them in zip forms, but you have to fill that out. And I don't want to do that because I don't necessarily know what the fees are going to be. Where if I use their app, it already has their escrow fees and all that stuff already built into it. So about the only thing I need to do is plug in a sales price and check the tax amount and then be off and running. Some of the other things when we're looking through one of these, if it's a, here's the listing details on it, right? This is, we're talking about showing. Here, listing source is Austin, so actress. Yeah. There's the showing phone number. That is probably the agent's phone number on this one. Nope. Yeah, right there. Office phone number 512. It's different. Your school's homeowners association information's in here. Anything that's public is going to be in here for you, right? So you can pull from it, that's what we want to do. Your deed information, who it belongs to, and et cetera. And then you also have the history on these. And this is what we're looking at earlier. So the loan amount on this, when they did the loan in 2014, was 2009. They did a conventional, which means they probably put some money down, right? This does not show a title company. Have any of you used this to pull the title company up? No? We had a situation where the buyer was going to put in an offer, and they were talking about the cost. What about the survey? Well, we can ask the seller to do it, but you're making a low offer. You're asking for closing costs. We need to see if they have one. And again, when my wife gave me that information, she went in and she pulled up the title company, and she called the title company and said, hey, this probably closed with you, whatever it was, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Is there any possibility you would still have the survey? And the answer is yes. Give us a couple days, we can get it for you. Right? So that's, I share that with you because that usually on here, you'll have a title company on here. So if you get in that situation where that's an issue, because we've actually even paid for surveys before we started using this, and it'll help eliminate some of those things. Any questions about those? Anything we've covered so far? All right, let's go ahead and take a 10-minute break, and then we'll jump back in here. Please, 10 minutes.
was 20. How many y'all ever do that? So 11 times basically $35. But everything else is really that much too, right? You know, everything's kind of limited, right? Yeah. Is it? So it goes from 19. That's just regular popcorn, regular popcorn. And that's how much, that's 20, and then you do 3 flavors, how much is that? Let's see. No, I almost feel like it's the same. And maybe send it, and maybe send, or we just do like the gift cards. Yeah, we just do a Christmas card. Which one? Okay. Or, okay, we can just go buy it. We use all our Christmas cards, I mean, we do it. Well, okay, okay. Okay, so let's do this. We don't need to spend 50 bucks. Let's do like a $25 gift card to Target. Or what would you suggest? I mean, I'm afraid to do anywhere else. Maybe they don't have that restaurant, maybe they don't, you know what I mean? Do Amazon, that's perfect. You just go get those somewhere, you just go to H-E-B and get them. Or I'll go to H-E-B and get them. You know what I mean? Well, but do you need to be at H-E-B? Yeah, okay, like, yeah. Yeah, do that, let's do that. Let's do that, and yeah, you know, something along the lines, see. Okay, something along the lines of, you know, thank you so much for your referral, you know, over the past, blah, blah, blah. I think that's better, sorry, I'm reaching a little bit, but I don't think we need to spend, I don't think we need to spend $50. Right. Let's just do it in some part, that's an awesome idea. Yeah, I can swing by. I'm at home right now, and then, we're closing on Essex Grace at 1:30 and Sky Country at 2. And then it looks like the last lady has agreed to waive the lien, she's just getting, I don't know, anyway, so she's supposed to.
Dan, if you can hear me, we can hear you.
On Wednesday, we can close on blaming the vote. Yes, I will, just keep an eye out in my email for the closing disclosures, the signed closing disclosures. What's it, Yes, and I don't want to order any of that stuff because we literally have 5 shipments already. And I think we might just get an offer. So instead of wasting our money, let's give it couple of days. Because I have the brochures for getting that in my car right now.
All right. So we're going to kick this back in. If any of you have a listing that we can pull up? Susie, you have one?
Yes, 3919 Bob Billa, Bobbilla.
And where is that?
It is near Goliad. I just got it yesterday.
Okay.
And
What's the zip code? Do you know?
it is 78223.
See if I can get it to come up. You haven't, is it in MLS
No,
yet?
not
or-
yet.
Okay. What was the numbers on it again?
3919.
919. Okay. Let's see if we can find that. Let's see.
Mac,
Yes.
do you have a preferred program that you use for CMAs? And do you teach a class on CMAs?
Preferred program for me is RPR. And do I teach classes on it? Not like a CE class very often. Let me see if I can get this to come up real quick. It's not giving me a 3919.
Mac, I'm so sorry. That's because it's 3219.
It's what?
Because it's 3219.
Oh, 3219. Yeah. Okay. That's all right. Yeah, that's all right. We do that. Let's see. I had that one. We will get this.
This is my cousin's house, this house on Bob Villa, and it has some foundation problems. So I've gotten a bid on that, and I was kind of messing with RPR with it. You can change the refined value, right, by entering that it needs that type of work done and how much it is, right?
Right.
And so who sees that? Only the person that's doing it, or
Yes.
everyone?
Yeah, no, it's only you. Yeah. So on the screen right now, you have that property 3219. That's the one you're talking about.
Correct. Yes.
And this is exactly what I was talking about. You see how there's only one star there? That's rough. You're gonna have to do a lot of work with this one because the system is saying there's not enough information there to do that. That's the confidence score is pretty low. So for some of you, this may be elementary, but anytime somebody says take the listing, anybody, there's 3 questions that always ask the seller, always. Why are they selling? How soon they need it sold by? And oh, by the way, what do you think your property is worth? And those 3 questions are really important, especially when you come up against something like this. That last one, what do you think your property is worth, is a pretty important one, because we're going to need to work on this one. So is it okay if I go through this real quick, Susie?
Please.
All right. We're just going to, and all I'm going to do is just touch base on a few things on it, possibly. I have not looked at it, so we don't have anything. It is owner occupied. You can see that part of it. When we go down and look at some of the other details on it, there's the mortgage records. So what I'm showing you is, if I represented the buyer and I was looking at this property, this is exactly what I tell the agents to do. We talk about this in the ABR course. We talk about it in the GRI class. We do talk about buyer reps. If you're doing your job for the buyer, you need to find out everything you can about that property. Now, I can ask the listing agent, but I'm going to do my homework first, right? And I want to do, if I'm representing the buyer, I'm going to do a CMA on it. So if Susie had this listed and I had a buyer for it, I'm going to go in and take a look at this before I do anything else. What do we need on it? And these are some of the things, like, here's the loan amount, like we were talking about before. It tells you where they had it, when they got the loan, what type of loan it was, right? And this is all information I could use to benefit my client. And as a listing agent, sometimes it's like, shoot, I wish that information wasn't there, but there's nothing we can do about that. The good thing is, there's nothing we can do about it other than being prepared. So the good thing is, we can share that with our client. If we're the listing agent, we share that information with the client and let them know that this is public information. Because there's other places you can get this. The problem is, you have to you go to this site to get this, or that site to get that. You don't get it all in one. And that's why I love this one. Everything is right there where you can get that information. You go down here to the deed records on it. And again, it's pulling from public information. They have a warranty deed. And the reason I look at that is because I was a repo agent. So sometimes you'll see a special warranty deed. And special warranty deeds means that when they bought it, they only got it from the time the bank picked it up until the time they bought it. Not anything from before is warranted in that. So what kind of a deed was it when they got it? And this one was good because it went back to the original date of the property. So there's basic information there. And then when you click on history, there's even more. And this is like what we were looking at on the phone, for example. This tells when the property was purchased, warranty deed, who bought it, how much, again, loan amount, the loan type, who did the financing on it as well. And then you have, again, the mortgage records down here on the bottom with it as well. If I was to see 2 different type of loan types, like this shows 96, this shows 96, and the buyer is these individuals, Ellen and Paul. And I come down here, and here's Ellen and Paul, but they also had a loan in 2003. Why is that? And what you generally find is that's probably a refi. Sometimes it'll show that because they probably, this one was in 96, they bought it, right? And then down here, they had may have had, it shows FHA, so that shouldn't have been. But they could have possibly done something where they had a refi on it. The other thing is, when you're looking at this, and the reason I share this with you is in working with investors, if they've done a cash out, refi with cash out, that's a possibility. Or they could have a home equity loan on it of some sort. All of those, if they get recorded, all those will show up. And I was doing an RPR class in San Antonio several years ago, and one of the students in there came up and said, if everything you're saying is true, I want to buy this property. And what she was looking at was it was showing one loan. So she was on her phone. And when she came up on the break and we looked at it, we pulled it up on the big screen, and they actually had their primary loan, and then they had a home equity loan, and she was looking at the home equity loan, which made it look like that was a good property to go get, right? But you also have the primary loan back here that we don't know the balance on. So one of the things on this property, you have the charts and all that good stuff, but where you can go through it, just like we were talking about earlier. The refined value, Susie had mentioned that earlier. This is just ours. So where it says, when I say ours, our information, whoever's running it. So it shows the estimated value at 135. If I go in here and I change some of this, that may change. And some of you may have seen that. If I change bedrooms, it changed it. So that's telling you, just that little click right there, that a bedroom in that area is worth $16,000. And on these values and on the repairs, NAR hired a company to drill it down to the zip code on the value of the property for repairs and et cetera. So that was just real quick on that one. And the reason that is important is this is a 3-bedroom, according to the records, right? But if I'm using a comp that has 4 bedrooms, I now know what that 4th bedroom is valued at. Does that make sense? Because I want to be able to make adjustments. And then down here at the bottom on this one is the refined value for repairs. Not everything's listed, but if we take let's take a, I don't know, bathroom, upscale bathroom. And it gives you the information here as to what that means when we say upscale, right? 100 square feet, that kind of thing. Let's say they repaired it December of last year. And they spent, what's a remodel for a upscale bathroom run? 15,000? Is that good? Okay. So let's say December of last year, they spent 15,000. When I click add, today that bathroom's only worth 8,000, but it also made the adjustment up here for me. And this is the part I use all the time. So when I ask a seller, why are they selling? How soon do they need to have it sold by? And by the way, what do you think your property's worth? A lot of times, 90% of the time or better, they'll say, well, that's the reason I'm talking to you. I understand that, but I know you didn't just wake up this morning and decide to sell your property. So what do you think it's worth? And what they'll tell you a lot of times is we bought it for this, but we did this, this, and this. So we'd like to get this much out of it. So then that's when I start asking, okay, you did this. When did you do it? What did it cost you roughly? And I can go in here and plug that in and include this in my report. I can include this in my CMA form. So they can see, yeah, you might have spent 15,000, but I'm sorry. It's just the way it works. Does that make sense? So that adds to me, for me, this adds a lot of power to it because I've walked away from listings because individuals would not adjust the price. Over the years in this practice, I have tried not to take overpriced listings. I have taken them, sat on them for 3 years, but try not to do that. And these are the ones where they say it needs improvement. Now, unfortunately, this does not run out the numbers. So these are going to be your numbers. So this is one of them I don't use or I try to stay away from. So if I said a roof, for example, and it was going to cost 5,000, it's automatically going to add that 5,000. I'm sorry. It's going to take away from that 5,000 up here on the value side of it because it needs that improvement, which may not be the real value of it. Does that make sense? Right. And then down here we have the sliders. The sliders are awesome. And I'm going to minimize the size of the screen just a little bit so you guys can see this a little better as far as the adjustments go. If you have not used this number up here at the top where it says 143, when I move the slider, it changes the numbers. So the local market, it's hot. And as soon as I change it, it changes the number up here, right? And it does that with all of them. So you want to adjust these. This is based on your interpretation of what is good or what's bad, right? Is the view good? And as a repo agent, that used to drive me nuts. What kind of a view does the property have? Neighbors across the street, ugly neighbors across the street. I don't know. What do you want? What kind of view does it have? And then rate it accordingly. But anyway, so you can put that in there, and that'll show up in your report as well. And then you go over to the comp analysis, and some of you had indicated you're using RPR for your CMAs, yes? Right? So on here, when you click on this, normally it has the top button. And what I would recommend you do is use the bottom one. And when you do that, this little box is going to pop up. Everybody see that box? And we're not appraisers, so we just hit skip and go to this. And what that's going to do is it's going to give you the valuation workbook to work from. And it has more details in it. You confirm the facts, and we're not going to do a full one here. I'm just going to show you you confirm the facts. Yes. You find the comps. And again, this is where having access to the sold properties is really important. You find your comps. Remember that when you're doing a CMA on a property, you want it to be as close to that subject property as possible, as far as bedrooms, baths, style, everything else. Close proximity, square footage. What's the measurements on square footage for a CMA or an appraisal? What do we use?
15 and 20%.
Okay. 15 to 20. Jennifer, do you have something else?
Oh, I thought you were asking a different question.
Okay.
I was thinking gross living area for the square foot.
All right. And I'm glad you brought that up, because when I started in this, I was taught to use 200 plus or minus on the square footage. That's what I was taught. And I used that for years until I was taught correctly, which is use 15 to 20%. In some of the classes, you'll hear 25%. 15 just makes it really, really tight. So when I do one, I might go in and use 25 initially and then narrow it down to see how, because of our area, you know your area, you know what works and what doesn't, right? So you go in and you adjust this accordingly, right? And then do your search for those properties. Off the market, we want normally within 90 days, if we can. How far out can we go to do a CMA? How far out?
1 mile.
Time-wise. Pardon me?
Oh, geographically or time?
No, time-wise, how far out can we go?
6
How
months.
far back?
6 months.
What was that, Susie?
6 months.
Time-wise, how far back can we go?
6 months.
6 months? All right. Appraisers, it's not real common, but if they can't find anything else, they'll go back 2 years.
Yeah.
Right? So you're looking at square footage. Your criteria is the location, date of the sale, and then the other third one, most important one, is the size, right? 15 to 20% plus or minus. So location, date of the sale, and the size of the property. Those are your 3 key elements on a good CMA. And when we talk about the date of the sale, 90 days is where we'd love to have it. But if I go in my area and I look for 90 days in a normal market, I'm not going to find it. So as a repo agent, when I was doing BPOs and stuff all the time, I would start with 6 months. Sometimes I'd have to bump it out to a year. And I'm looking for sold properties, because I want to see what's moving, right? I don't change anything else. I just go from sold to active. Take off the sold, put on active, same area, everything else stays the same. And if I don't have any active ones there, I may go in and do some adjustments on the distance out or the time back to see what we can get. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Bonnie?
About distance, how far are they supposed to I mean, what's like the limit that they can go out if they don't find anything? You know, I mean, can they
What-
go like 10, 20 miles away, or is it, what's the typical or the norm?
It's going to depend on the area. There's a class called PSA, Pricing Strategy Advisor, where we cover those items, and the focus would be, obviously, if we could, on the same block or same subdivision. But in some of the rural areas, you're lucky if you're in the same town or the same school district, right? So you want to try to get it as close as possible, and you want things to be the same as much as possible. So what we try to do, for example, is if it's in one of those rural areas, we'll go to the school district, and we may start with an elementary school. And if we don't have enough there, we'll go to the middle school and then to the high school. And if we still don't have enough, then we'll go to a neighboring city to see if we can pull from there. Because whatever we do, if we're doing it right, then the appraiser is going to have to do the same thing. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Matt, so you start like with a half a mile and then you go from there?
I will actually pull a subdivision first for the valley. Okay. I'll pull the subdivision first, see what's in there. So I'll go subdivision, 6 months. For me, if I plug one in right now, it'd be subdivision, 6 months, and 15 to 20%, probably 20% on the square footage. And if I don't find anything, I might bump the square footage out to 25%. If I still don't find anything, then I'm going to bump the area out or the date out until I find, and I'm just searching for solds. I need the solds first, because what's an appraiser use? 3 solds, right?
Mhm.
And if we can't find them, they're not going to be able to find them, especially if we're using RPR.
I have a question.
Sure.
So when you're building a CMA and back to being members of multiple boards, is there a way to pull sold data? Like, can you toggle back and forth between your different boards? So if you can get the sold data from Austin Board of Realtors and the sold data for Four Rivers, because if it's an Austin agent, they don't,
Right.
and the listing is in San Marcos, they're not going to put it in Four Rivers. They're only
Right.
putting it in Austin Board of Realtors.
Right. I don't know that you can toggle back and forth and still be able to keep the same information. I have not
Okay.
tried that. What you can do, and that's what I was scrolling up for, is right here it says add a known property. So I could pull that MLS number from that other MLS and put that in
Mhm.
here and click on add, and it'll add it to my CMA.
Okay, so essentially you
that way.
can.
That's right. So, and as you click on these, see, I don't have any sold prices on it, so it's not going to do anything. But as you add them, it gives you the information over here. So I'm going to drop down to the actives because they're in here.
Mac, this one doesn't have it, but you know how sometimes when you look at the comps, it says used to calculate RVM? That'll come up that it was used to calculate the RVM.
Right.
Those automatically really the best ones to use. I mean, I know it depends on the subject property, but are those preferable to use if you can?
I certainly want to look at them because the system is saying that it meets all this criteria. And the problem that I have seen with that, the only problem that I've seen with it, is sometimes the distance or the size is a little different than what I would like to have if I can. Right. So the size might be 25% versus the 15%, for example.
But it's still within range to adjust, usually, right?
Right. Yeah. So I went down to the active, and the reason I did that is to show you up at the top. It gives you all the prices and all that. It'll actually do all this for you, and that's another reason why I like to ask the seller, what do you think your property's worth? Because the most I've done is 3 CMAs on one property, because I was trying to get where they were at, and I did one just like I normally would do, and it didn't work. So then I tweaked it. I still didn't get there. So I went back in to tweak it one more time and say, okay, this is my final one. I'm standing on this one, no matter what. And I was not even close to what they wanted. So I did my presentation and left without the listing. But you do 3 CMAs and you can't come up with that price, there's a problem someplace. And again, it's not just you listing it. The appraiser has to be able to do the same thing. And if you can't get it, how the heck are they going to get it? So I'm going to go down here and we're going to validate that and close it. Obviously we didn't do anything with it, but we just, and then you go to adjusting. And this is the part that I've actually had an agent in McAllen tell me that, well, we can't do adjustments because we're not appraisers. And that is not true. We want to do adjustments. That's the whole idea behind doing a CMA. But there's so many different things you can do with this. So and it comes back to, how do you do your business? How do you do things? So I was taught early on, when you do the presentation, show them one that's not as close to theirs, not as similar as theirs is, and build to the best one, right? I don't know that even matters anymore today. When I present it today, what I'll do is, are you familiar with this property? Yes or no? And if they're not, I am, because I've gone through this and here's where I think the differences are. And that's where you make your adjustments at. So I tell you that because you can move these around. I can make this the third one if I want to, right? And use this one as my primary. And you go in and make your adjustments in this valuation workbook based on what you know. And just like that 16,000 for a bedroom, for example. So here's a four bedroom. If I put it 16,000 in here, and it's better, the comp is better than the subject, right? The comp is better than the subject. So what do we do?
You're going to subtract it, right?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah. And it does all that for you down here and gives you your adjusted value for the comps, which makes it really, really good. Then you also have the weighting for it and et cetera. One of the other things I love about this is I can put my notes in here. I can tell you back in the day, there was, I am a yellow pad nut, right? Always write things down on the yellow pad. And there were CMAs I did where all my notes were on a yellow pad. Here I can build it right into the report. And then you just create the report. It's going to go to the valuation workbook, and that's what you're going to create. And again, we didn't actually do a full-blown one, so it's not going to be correct, but it's there. Just run it.
Mac, why else would the sold price not be listed besides you're not associated with the board? Like all of mine would be Sabre, and a lot of times the sold price doesn't display it on there.
So when the agent's in MLS, like our MLS says allow internet, right? And they put no. So, or allow the address, no. There's information the agent, the listing agent, and they input it into MLS, there's information they can keep from going out as well. Ours just has no, allow to the internet is yes or no. And if it says no, then that property doesn't go out anywhere at all. Just, you can see it in MLS, but you won't find it anyplace else. And it has a couple others on there for like comments for virtual offices and et cetera. Virtual office websites. On the right-hand side of this, now this is your reports page, right? So if I was even, okay, we just ran this report, but if I was just getting in here and I wanted to do some work on my RPR, and if you don't have this set up, I would set it up. Go to the reports section and go down here to the bottom and make sure all your information is in here. This should pull from your profile, right? And then you also have custom pages. So this is where I add that title company seller's estimated net proceeds. I print that off in a PDF, save it in a file, and then upload it here. I just click on add and then upload it into this. So now I have that. I'll have that in here so it'll come out. And you actually, once you upload it, it'll allow you to choose whether you want it to be the second page or the last page. You get to choose where you want it at as well in there. And that's where we put our estimated seller's proceeds every time, is in here this way, so that we have it in the presentation that we're trying to give them. And then you also have the choice here as to what you want to be on the cover sheet as far as your information, et cetera. Any questions on that one? So I'm going to open up a one I did yesterday, just messing with this. This is the valuation workbook, just like the one we just did. And one of the things I love about this, you have all the stats on here. And by the way, when you get ready to do this, if you don't want some of this, take these off. I don't want sales comparison. I don't want assessed values. I don't want listing history. Take it off just by checking the box. And if you're not sure what it is, put the cursor over that little icon, that little dot there, and it'll show you what that is. And then you can take them out. If you uncheck, it's just like an outline. If you uncheck the main box here, right? Even if you want this, it's not going to let you do that without having that one checked. Right? So that's just a part of it. Then you can decide down here again what you want or don't want in there as well. On the valuation workbook, the reason one of my main reasons for doing it, I'm just going to skip to the back part of this. So if we had sold information, which we don't in this one, right? If we had the sold information, we would have the absorption rate. What is the absorption rate?
The days it took the house to sell.
It's actually how many months supply. So if your home comes on the market today, Mr. and Ms. Seller, there's 14 homes out there waiting to be sold. The agents are working on those. They're not focused on yours. So we need to make sure that the price is correct, right? And it breaks it down. You have the 7 to 12 month all the way down to the 3 month. So that's a really good tool to use. This is based on single family homes, local market, right? So that's general information, but the page right above it is based on sales, same sales, similar sales, there you go, and size properties. So we're talking about homes like yours. Homes like yours. And on these two pages, I actually reverse them. I'll put the other one first and this one second. So we can talk about the general market. Now let's talk about what you're doing in your subdivision or whatever it was I used for criteria for them. But that absorption rate is really important. Everybody knows how to figure that out themselves, right? If the system doesn't. Absorption rate? Yes. Okay. All right. I didn't learn that until I had about 6 years in the business. Yep. Any questions on that workbook? Okay. So we're back here on the reports. Again, we're in the reports section and you have complete, pending, failed. We have these reports in here. This morning we did a property flyer right here on Adams Street. We did a property flyer from Adams Street. Do any of you use this little orange dot? Because this, when I click on it, allows me to either download the report or I can rerun it. Or I can share it to Facebook. And so you can take it right over to your Facebook. I'm not going to post this one because it's not mine. It's not something I want to do, but it'll take me right over to Facebook where I can post that flyer in my Facebook. And we have a couple agents that'll do this. They post it here and in their Instagram. So they'll post it here and then over to Instagram as well. Especially if it's a new listing or you just sold something. It's a great way to get the information out there real quick. Any questions on those? Nope. Boy, you guys got quiet this afternoon. Must be lunchtime or something. Let me stop share real quick. All right.
I have a question regarding the mobile app.
Sure.
So when I go into the profile, and I click the little profile arrow and it drops down, it says access to RPR from this app is set to expire on 12/11/2020. What does that mean?
Access to that app.
Yeah, it says access to RPR from this app is set to expire on 12/11/2020. And then it says you can update this access at any time by putting my email and my password in there. And I've done it several times and I hit update, but it still says the same thing.
Right.
Mine says that too.
Yeah, it's only gonna keep you logged in for the time you're using it, is what it's getting at. I have mine set to, I have to do the same thing. I have to log in every time, but I use it with my fingerprint instead of email and all that stuff. So I just touch the camera with my finger and it opens it up that way. But it's for security purposes. We have the same, just like you were talking about with some of the other things, we have a thing we're working on with the board where we have a one sign in. So I can sign into this one website, if you will. And from there, I have a dashboard with RPR and zip forms and NAR and everything else I need is going to be there, right? But the problem is some of those sites don't let you stay logged in, right? If there's no activity, they kick you out. Zip form, for example, will kick you out. Texas Realtors, depending on how it's set up, for years, if I needed to get to zip forms, I would go to Texas Realtors and click on zip form, because that way I only needed to know my password and username for Texas Realtors. And because of that, because they were connected, it would automatically take me over there and I didn't have to log into zip forms. My wife was just the opposite. She never went to Texas Realtors and always went straight to zip forms. And when zip form changed, or when she bought a new computer, we switched that around so that was an easier way to get in, is through Texas Realtors. However, today I don't do that. I just type in zip and it automatically comes up. So you have to make it work for whichever way. That is for security reasons, though, is one of the reasons why it's that way. If I log into my regular zip forms account on my own, like today I type in zip and I go to zip form, within an hour, if I don't do anything within an hour, it knocks me out. And that's because of the security stuff on it. All right, I want to show you a couple other things here, if we could. All right, so we're going to go back to, yeah, there we go. We're going to go back to the listing that Susie's working with, right? And since she shared that in the class, I'm going to beat her to the listing. No, just joking. I'm going to go right here where it says, you see where it says zip form? Do you guys use that? You guys use this little connection right here? So I click on zip form. It's going to say start a new zip form transaction. I want the listing. I click OK. And if you're familiar with zip form, what it's going to do is on the top left-hand side, zip form is going to open up and it's going to start that transaction for me, just like that. Nice. And what makes it really nice is if you set up zip form so your templates are there, when it opens, not only does it bring that information over from RPR, but it also puts your template with it, so you're off and running and ready to go. I'll show that to you here in just a second, hopefully. You see how the name come up on the top left already, right? And here's all the information from RPR. It's all the public information automatically comes over, which is cool. But what's better is if I have my template set up, for example, it's going to automatically show in the contracts already too. All right. So it's just a way to try to save a little bit of time. So the very first part of that in zip form, make sure you have templates set up, right? If you don't have that. 2, make sure it's linked with RPR. And when we do, just as an example, when we do a CMA for the buyer, we're looking at it, we're going over things with them. If they go, yes, let's do it, we just click on that and we go straight over here. Now all we need to do is put their information in, right?
Now, how do you sync it with your zip forms?
That's the one on the sprocket here. This one we started at the very bottom down here. I said your phone and zip form right there. You see that?
Connected. Okay, hold on.
That has to be on the desktop.
Oh, not on the.
Yeah, not on the phone.
Okay.
I wish it would do it from the phone. It will do it from the tablet. It'll do it from a tablet if you have the mobile version. It does do it from the, or has done it from the mobile version. I don't know if you guys are aware or not, but Lone Wolf bought Zipform. And ever since they bought Zipform, we've had a lot of issues with it. So, and it's issues because they keep changing things. They're adding things like crazy.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you add things like that, not everything works. So.
Who bought them?
Lone Wolf.
Oh, okay.
So if you set that up, the zip forms on your desktop, will it transfer to your mobile app? I mean,
no. Well, if you have Zipform mobile, for example, you can open it up in the mobile version and bring it over, because you can do RPR from Zipforms also. So if I go to just Zipforms, I can click on RPR and type in the address, and it'll bring the information over also. Now, if you have them linked, so you'd be able to do that on the mobile version, right? So we are again going to, any other questions on that Zipform part? All right. We're going to go again to this property. And when we look at this property, one of the other areas, and I'll be honest with you, I have not used this with an investor. I have not walked all the way through it, but I want to make sure you know it's there, because it's on my list of things to do. But it's, again, one of the things that keeps changing. And that is right below Zipforms, it has value property analysis. This is for investors, right? So when I click on that, it has training for it, which I'm working on, but it has the analysis. And I used to have to do all this by hand, working with investors, but it gives you a chance to, what do they need to do? What are they trying to do with this property? Let's say they want to flip it. It makes changes down here. How long are they going to hold it for? Let's say they're going to hold it for 8 months, and it'll change all the numbers. You submit that information and it gives you an analysis on that property.
Cool.
And it has the reports, your cash flow, all these things are up here for you, that you can actually use with it. And like I said, I've played with it a little bit, but I have not gone through it where I actually had to create something to give back to them. It used to be like an Excel spreadsheet, and they've gotten real fancy with it with this new company that's working with it.
Where's the starting point for that again? I'm sorry, I missed it.
It's okay. It's right here underneath the zip form.
Okay.
Evaluate property analysis.
Perfect. Thank you.
And there's a couple commercial agents that we have over in the McAllen area that use that to work with their investors on fourplexes and duplexes, things like that, all the time, to find out their return on investment, et cetera. But again, it was the type of thing where I threw it out in the class and they're like, you're kidding. So it just makes it a whole lot easier because you have everything there for it. All right. Any other questions there? The last portion of this, if we could, we're going to go to an area that may or may not be good for some of you. It depends on how you look at things. But when I click on market activity, this part is a part that works like an MLS, in that I can plug in city, zip code, whatever, new listings. And again, sold may not come up depending on where it's at, but that's not what I'm going to do. What I want to do is I'm going to plug in new distressed. And I'm going to leave it at 6 months because of COVID, we haven't had as much activity with distressed, but I wanted to show you where it's at. And I'm just going to let's try,
Did you have to do something to get those? Because it doesn't show on mine. Show changes.
are you on the desktop version?
Yeah.
Okay. So it should be underneath market activity.
Oh, I'm sorry. There we go.
Let me just, see what comes up here. And when I talk about distressed properties, we're talking about repos. And in most cases, you'll see both listed repos and pre-foreclosures. And the pre-foreclosures, this morning I asked, yeah, there's 4 of them. I asked if any of you do short sales. And this is a great source for short sales or investors. As a repo agent, I didn't have access to this. And people would call me and say, you know, do you know of a property that may be going on foreclosure? We're interested in buying foreclosures. I didn't have access to this, but I was doing it. I did over 300 BPOs between my wife and I. I do 300, she'd do a bunch of them. So we knew of properties that could possibly be going on the market, but not for sure, right? This allows you to get it as soon as it gets recorded. So 21 days prior to the scheduled foreclosure, the county clerk has to receive a notice that it's possibly going to foreclosure, and they have to record that. And that's when it shows up here. So as I've worked with investors over the years, the county auctions, COVID aside, the county auctions go in each county on the first Tuesday of every month. So you take that first Tuesday and you count back about 18 or 19 days, give them time to get it in to the system, count back about 18, 19 days, then go in here and see what they have in your county, right? And then that will allow you to find possibly pre-foreclosures. And I'm just going to grab one of these real quick. I don't know these people. I don't know anything about their situation or whatever, but this will allow me to go in and take a look at, like this one has the 4 stars. It's off the market, right? So it's not listed. Here's the distressed info. There has been notices filed on this property in June of 2020, June of 2019, May of 18, August of 16. These folks have had a hard time with this property, right? And again, not judging, just looking at it. They've been able to bail it out for one reason or another. So keep in mind that when you're looking at this, they always have, in Texas, we have the equitable right of redemption. That means that you have the right to pay off what's owed up until the auction, right? And bring it up to date, which is probably what they've done to keep it from going to foreclosure over time. That's called equitable right of redemption. So we see that it's in here. We see that it was scheduled to go in August, but it probably didn't. I mean, in July, but it probably didn't. We can check the deed records and see that it didn't. So the names haven't changed. You can check the history on it and see if there's anything there. Again, we don't have anything. And here's some more of the distress info. What is the trustee? Oh, is that Jennifer?
Sorry, isn't that the attorney that's handling the process?
Right. And they're going to be appointed by the bank or whoever the lender is to handle that. So in this case, you've got some options. In this case, I could actually go to these people. One of the techniques is knock on the door. I've noticed that, or I've seen that you may be having financial difficulties with your house, or maybe losing your house, I'd like to try to help you. We have what is called a short sale. So I could take the listing with a short sale. To do that, you have to actually notify the bank, right? So you need a listing agreement between you and the owner. You need a CMA. You need a hardship letter from them saying that there's no way in the world they're going to get out of this. You send all that over to the bank. The bank will come back and tell you, yes, go ahead and list it at that price. And our experience is they'll give you about 90 days to do that. I say ours, I've never done them. My wife's done them, and they work. I don't have the patience for some of that sometimes, because I will tell you, depending on the bank, it may take a bit to get that response back. There's a bank, I won't mention their name, but their initials are BOA. They take a while sometimes, right, to get you a response. That's been my experience. But anyway, so we got the short sale side, or we could have an investor in our pocket that buys properties like this. We can go knock on the door, find out what their situation is. We have an investor who may be interested. Is it okay if I bring him? The investor comes. I'm not asking them for commission or any of this stuff. I'm working with the investor, right? I'm his dog out there, if you will. I'm looking for his hunting dog. I'm out there looking for properties for him. So he takes care of me that way. I can go find the property. I'll bring the investor over. He decides he likes it. We work out a deal with him. He buys it and we flip it. That's one possibility. Or he buys it and we take it and use it as a rental property. One of the techniques in buying it that I've seen used is the investor will offer them, I'll pay off the note so you don't have the foreclosure. I'll pay off the note. I'll pay for your rent for the next 3 months or whatever. They work something out with them that way. And to keep them from having the foreclosure. Because that's the key in my opinion, right? Because you don't want that to show up on their record. So that's just a couple of things. The other part of this is actually contacting, like in this case, Deborah Martin with the bank. If you can find the bank, and usually the bank's listed up here, right? Not always, but sometimes. If I can get in touch with them, maybe I can work for the bank and trying to help solve this property or sell this property as a repo. And as a repo agent, that's the kind of prospecting I did almost every day, especially at the beginning of it. At one point, I was working for 13 different banks, or we were 13 different banks. And that's how I prospected. I'd find the problem, go to the bank. How can I help you? And a lot of times you had to work through all those issues. But anyway, so that is how you find repos in the system here. And you have the same type of information that you'd have on any of the other properties. And like I said, these all show pre-foreclosure. If it's listed, the listing information will be down here on the bottom right here. It'll show blue and listed. Yes, ma'am.
They don't offer this for tax foreclosures, right? Only lenders.
Right. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah. The tax foreclosures, you can usually go to a county site, or there's another one. There's another site that will give you that information as well.
Okay.
When you approach the bank about these and go through that avenue, do you have your CMA done and all that already? When you talk about property listing it?
I found it easier not to have, because they're going to tell you what they want. And that's one of the reasons why I got out of that business, to be honest with you. The banks, when I started with it, it was really easy to work them out and get the CMAs, and I could explain everything to them. It wasn't a big deal. They started going automated. And with the automated part, I could have, just like we were talking about the square footage, one of the banks, one of the companies used 200 plus or minus on the square footage. And if I went through the CMA and I plugged this property in, it could be right next door to the subject property. But if it was 205 square feet more than the subject property, they wouldn't accept it. the system wouldn't accept it. It would not allow me to submit that. It would tell me that it has to be replaced. Where on paper, I could write in, you know, I use this comp. I realize it's a 5 square feet larger than it's supposed to be. However, it's right next door. So I think it adds value to it. Does that make sense? But with the automated systems were crazy and would make me crazy. But anyway, any other questions or comments on this one? And you can do this by city, you can do it by county, you can do it by school district. I just plug in San Antonio because I know there's usually some there. You can do that search. And again, that's market activity. Just click on new distressed. And in a normal, prior to what used to be normal, prior to COVID type thing, I would run this on a monthly basis for the counties here in the Valley. But now everything's backlogged with not backlogged, but they're not doing the foreclosures like they were. Notices are still going out. They're just not doing them. And in some cases, notices are not going out even or getting recorded. That's one of the things you can do with it. Any other questions there?
Is that one only on the desk version, not on the mobile version?
No, on the mobile version, you can have new distressed. It's on my phone. It's on the bottom, very bottom of my phone on the screen where I had the active properties and sold and all that. It's a category on the bottom of it. And you can set that up in your profile on your phone to which ones you want to see as well. The other thing I wanted to share with you is there's 2 ways of learning more about RPR if you want to. One of them is right here at the top, and this is one of their new things. You've got that little graduation cap, if you will. And they'll have things in here that you can use. There's videos. Most of their videos are 5 minutes or less, but they have all types of information in here that you can do, listen to and learn more about. Or even down here where it says learning, you can click on learning and it'll take you over to the site where those are at as well, which is a separate site, but it has it broken down by agent, appraiser, etc. So you can decide, like agent, for example, here's all these videos in here. You can go in and take a look at that. But if I've been working with this a while, I want to learn something different, what do appraisers look at? So you have that. Just like that button on the CMA when I showed you, click off this and you click on this and that little gray box opens up for the appraisers. When this first came out, we were told not to use that it was only for appraisers. Stay away from it.
Matt,
They were telling everybody to use it. Go ahead,
where's
John.
the learning? How do we get to learning from the dashboard? I saw the little school cap, but what was the other way you said to get there?
Down at the bottom. Is this still sharing? Do you still see the RPR screen? Yes.
Oh,
Let me stop share here a second. I'll jump back in here. So it's right down here at the bottom. It's this right here.
oh, good. Okay.
And John, you're a broker, right?
I'm a broker for 3 relocation companies.
Holy smokes. Up here at the top where it has the data tools, that's where the brokers can go in and set this up so that this will all be branded with your logo, your name, your logo, your company name and logo. And then that also will come up on all the reports as well. So that's the personalization of it. That's what I got in trouble for in that one class, because we have that all set up.
You know what I love about that? Is that I don't like to watch videos or webinars. I want to read about it, and you can actually, there are ebooks that you can read. So I love that.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
It's
You
awesome.
love ebooks?
Yeah, so if you go down and you say agent and learning type, you can
Right.
watch new webinars, tutorials, or ebooks. Quick starts.
Yes.
So you can actually read rather than watch videos.
Wow. Appreciate that, Jan.
Yep.
I don't have time to read very much anymore. But because you say that, you guys use and we're this pretty much is wrapped up, but I hope you guys are using NAR's library where you can check out ebooks and audiobooks and all that stuff.
I didn't know they had that.
Go to nar.realtor and then go to library and archives, and you can get it from there. They actually even have flyers in there that you can use for marketing. But the audiobooks, I check out audiobooks all the time. In fact, I'm just going to do this real quick. For those of you, if you're we are finished with the class, I'm just going to do this, Jan, so you can see it. I appreciate you guys' time. I hope you got something out of it that you can use.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
if you just go to NAR, go to education, go to library and archives, and it's not going to let me go in because it's going to ask me to log into it. But they have the library and archives, has all the books that you can check out. Maybe it won't. Now it's going to ask me to log in. There it goes. Yeah. And I check out books all the time. They have them. They have the audio books or they have the ebooks, and that's part of your NAR dues. And there's a book in there called "Shut Up and Listen." If you haven't read that or listened to it, it's an awesome book. The author of it is the guy that owns Landry's and Rainforest Cafe and some basketball team named the Rockets.
Tim Fertitta.
Yes. Yeah. All right.
Nice.
Appreciate you guys' time.
Thank you, Mac. Have a Merry Christmas.
And don't forget to do your evaluation.
All right.
Matt, thanks so much for the class. I really enjoyed it.
Thanks, John.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
It was
Bye-bye.
awesome. Thank you so much. I didn't know it did all that.
Yes, ma'am. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much.
You guys have a good one. Stay safe.
Merry
Thank
Christmas.
you.
Merry Christmas.
Thanks, you too. Daryl, we'll see you.
LaDon, where's the course evaluation at?
It's in your emails.
Oh, okay.
Daryl, do you have a question?
No, thank you, Mick.
Okay. All right. Appreciate it.